All right, what we're actually going to be doing in this particular situation, there's two types of ways that a windshield or a piece of glass or laminated glass or even tempered glass can be set in a vehicle. One procedure is for fully replacing the glass. All right, that procedure is showing you a little bit. What I've been going through is a procedure called R&I. This is when we remove a window from a vehicle and we're going to be installing that exact same window back in the vehicle. Times this may happen if we remove it for paint, different types of situations like that in repair facilities. Now, in this particular case, we have the windshield that's been removed, and you can see there's existing urethane on the windshield already. That existing urethane that's on there actually should be left on there because at the point where what we want to do is we want to prep a windshield, we want to get it very clean for the process. And the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a glass cleaner, the approved glass cleaner for the urethane manufacturer, and use it on the window to actually clean the windshield. Once we go through and clean the windshield, we can get all the contaminants off, get it all nice and clean. Now, when we take a look at this process, you can see I'm not too worried about hitting the urethane or touching the urethane still in the glass. Because one thing that's going to happen is, once you clean the windshield, now you're going to take a razor blade or some similar device like a single-edged razor blade, and you would take and actually take the razor blade and use that to remove the existing urethane from the windshield. Once you take that existing urethane off the windshield, that windshield at that particular point would be set to be put in place. No primers would be needed or anything with that. The fact is that urethane's best bond is urethane to urethane, but fresh cut urethane is what we want. So once this windshield would be trimmed down, all this urethane would be removed from the glass, or not all of it, but the layer of urethane would be trimmed off there, then this glass would actually be ready to be set in place with no other preparation needed. The other procedure besides an R&I is a full windshield replacement. Now, a full windshield replacement in the process doing this is a lot like painting a vehicle. The prep, everything else for contamination needs to be followed step by step. Any failure in those steps, you can actually have an adhesion level breakdown of the urethane or adhesive to the glass. That would be a very negative effect on a car in an impact or a crash that would occur. Now, at this particular point, Buzz is going to actually spray the windshield, and we're going to take a look at some of the contamination that shows up on the glass. A glass cleaner that's approved by your urethane manufacturer, when you spray it onto the glass, you're going to notice that where it has contaminations, it's going to start bubbling up. It's going to show you where you have solvent issues, different things like that. That contamination in the handprints right through here all needs to be removed from this windshield because this will cause a very negative or have a very negative impact on the collision. So at this particular point, what we do is we go through and we do what's called a scrub process. The scrub process recommended by the company or the adhesive manufacturer using is they take the glass cleaner and put it on the windshield, and they're actually going to take almost like a scrub pad and actually start scrubbing the edge of the glass. What that does that pushes the glass cleaner down into the pores of the glass and pulls the contaminants up, pulls everything up so it gets caught up in the foam. Once it gets done scrubbing it, then it goes back through and it comes back with a clean towel and actually wipes and removes all the contaminants coming up that are actually scrubbed out of there. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that the process gets all the contaminants up, gets everything up through it. Now, once he goes through and actually goes through the scrub process like that, we're going to take a clean towel, and as we take and clean the glass, we're going to take and go across, but as I'm doing it, you're going to notice I'm actually rolling the towel. When I roll the towel, I'm picking up the contaminants and actually pulling it off the glass. If I were to take a towel and go back and forth, I'd just take and actually spread the contaminants back across the glass. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't actually do that. And every time I come back through to actually take and wipe up those contaminants, I always want to make sure I'm getting a clean part of the towel so that I don't have any issues with that. So as the process goes, we keep rotating the fresh edges of the towel, fresh sides of the towel, so we get all those contaminants up, but we keep rubbing and kind of taking that up. Now the trick is to do this while the glass cleaner is still wet. If the glass cleaner dries, you have to come back and re-wet it to get it actually to foam up to pick the contaminants up again. Otherwise what will happen is the contaminants will stick back down. Now, once we've done this process, we can take that same glass cleaner and go ahead and put a light film right across the bottom where the contamination was. So by putting a light film, you can actually see where you don't have the bubbling up. You can see where it actually picks those contaminants up. So that's what we're looking for in trying to get this glass as clean as possible. Now, once we get the windshield clean, and what Buzz is going to go through is going to clean the windshield and clean the entire windshield with the glass cleaner. I have to comment on the glass cleaner being used. This glass cleaner is the glass cleaner that's recommended by the adhesive manufacturer. In this particular case, we're using Dow products. If you were to use the wrong glass cleaner with the urethane system for putting in this glass, you may find out that the glass cleaner itself will contaminate the windshield. A lot of people use like generic brand glass cleaners, different things, but they may actually have a lubricant or something or a silicone in there to actually keep it from streaking on the glass. The problem we run into is that particular product can actually make the urethane and the primers that we're going to actually be using on this glass would make them not to adhere properly, and again, that would have a very negative impact of the windshield in the crash. Now, when we're cleaning this windshield, we have to remember that the windshield does a number of things in a crash. Number one, structural integrity of the vehicle, the roof strength of the vehicle, but we also have to remember that when the airbags deploy, they're going to deploy off this windshield and use it as a backboard. The adhesion between the urethane and the glass and the urethane in the vehicle is critical to all of these operations working during the motor vehicle crash. So everything has to be done very diligently in order, just like if you're prepping a vehicle for paint. If you were to skip a step, again, you'll have problems with that. Now, Buzz at this particular point has got the windshield good and clean with this. Now what he's going to start doing is actually go through and do a process called priming the glass. The adhesives that we use need help to adhere to the glass. In this particular case, we use a primer that actually primes to the glass, that actually etches into the glass, goes in and actually etches in and actually adheres to the glass, and then the urethane that we use to hold the windshield in place etches in and actually bonds into the primer. So what we're trying to do is get a very good bond coming through here. So similar to paint, this is almost like a sealer going on to help promote and fill in any areas, but to help promote adhesion of that paint to the vehicle. Now, as he goes around, these are one-time use sticks. They basically got a bottle inside that once you pinch them, they break. You put them on here and you can go around the glass. Procedures may require to do it once, or some companies such as Dow require that you go around the glass twice to make sure you get a proper primer coverage. Now, once this primer is on the glass, it will never come off. This glass can never be returned or anything with that because this primer is permanent. And this is one of the things why we talk about when we're using R&I glass. We can R&I a windshield, but using a used windshield actually becomes a problem because the primers, the urethanes, once applied are permanent. And we don't know if the previous windshield would have a good bond. This way we're guaranteeing we know we have a good bond. We document, we track it on all of our paperwork, so we have basically a way of tracking and make sure that this is done correctly. Once the primer is put in place, depending on the ambient temperature outside, there's going to be a period of time where it needs to flash off. In many cases, that can be 2 to 3 minutes, in some cases up to 6 minutes. At this particular point, we've got the glass that's ready to go, the primer is flashing off. We know it fits the vehicle from the dry set. Now we can move to the vehicle and actually prep the vehicle to receive the glass and get it ready for the urethane. So at that point, we'll move back over to the vehicle and I'll prep the vehicle. What we've done is we've prepped our windshield, we've got that ready to set in, so the primer's flashing off. Now we're going to be prepping the vehicle. When we left the vehicle, we had actually removed the windshield, left the adhesive, the existing adhesive on here. We dry set the windshield, we took it away. Now it comes time we have to trim the existing urethane down. And we're going to trim it down to 1 to 2 millimeters. It's still going to be left on the Pinchweld area. So we don't have to trim all the way down the metal, but just down to 1 to 2 millimeters. That's what we refer to as a full cut method. So we're removing that much of the urethane out. Now, Buzz is going to be using a long knife at this particular point to do this process. And what's going to be happening is as he trims that urethane out, you're going to see how it actually comes layering out through there. But Buzz is doing a very good job of being diligent to make sure that the blade or the tip of that blade doesn't dig into any painted surface or anywhere in that Pinchweld. Any contact like that would need to be primed or need to be prepped to make sure that no corrosion occurs from that spot. Now, when he's doing this process and working it through, you can see as he lifts the urethane away and how much the bead comes out. Now we get down to what we call a fresh cut surface right through here. That fresh cut urethane is the bonding surface that we want to bond to. Urethane's best bond is urethane to urethane, but it's that fresh cut version of that. So as he trims this down, he's going to take the urethane and actually trim it off. And when you take a look at the urethane as far as the cured adhesive that goes through here, you can see that it almost looks like it consists of tire rubber, but it's very flexible, but yet very strong. This allows the windshield to flex and move with the vehicle, but yet keeps it so it doesn't contact any metal and cause any breakage of the glass. So it's incredibly strong and elastic coming through there. Now, as he trims this down, you can kind of see different areas right through here as he's come along. But one thing I do want to point out is even in the manufacturing process, when an area comes up that they want to protect against any damage or any scratches or anything like that that happens from the installation, even from the manufacturing process, you can see that they have primer streaks that are on the back side of the pinch weld through here. That primer is used by the car manufacturer to seal up those areas and seal up any areas from any corrosion issues where they may have some open metal. So even from the car manufacturers, they can actually put a primer in there. That type of primer is going to be used by us after we trim this urethane out. And that primer comes in a small bottle that we actually use, so it's called a Pinchweld primer. In this particular case, again, we're using the Dow Beta Seal system. Now, the primer that's going to go onto this pinch weld to actually protect that painted area and protect those areas, we're going to be applying with a wool dauber. And the wool dauber is going to look like this. Now, this is just one way of actually using that. But before you use the primer to protect the vehicle, one thing that has to happen is everybody needs to know every time you use a primer like this that comes in a bottle, not a single-use application, but a bottle like this, you need to take and shake that bottle for a minimum of 60 seconds. The solids and the materials that are inside here will actually settle, and you need to make sure that they mix so we get a proper bond to the metal of the vehicle, or even to the painted surface of the vehicles. Now, in this particular case with this product, you will also notice that it has an expiration date on it. In this particular case, this is good to use till November of this year. So this is still a good product to use because it is unopened. The difference we run into is that if it were after November of this year, this product would be past that expiration date and should not be used at that time. But that's the shelf life time. Usually it's 9 months from date of manufacture. This product, if you were to take and open the cap, take the cap off, and actually take and open the seal and remove the plastic seal that's on the inside, now you have 7 days to use this product. If you don't use it within the 7 days, then whatever product is still left in that bottle must be thrown away or actually disposed of properly. So the difference is we have shelf life, which is 9 months from date of manufacture, but once you open it, you have 7 days to use the product. After that 7 days, the product is no longer good. So we're going to spend basically some time here shaking up the bottle and actually moving the solids around here. And you can see that Buzz is actually working some of the different areas and getting all the as much urethane as he can off there, but still leaving a thin film still on the vehicle. Now, when he's doing this, what's happening is we clean the vehicle is very clean, so we don't have too much problem with dirt or dust or anything on there. If we did have dirt or dust or anything that's on the pinch weld, at that particular point, we want to clean that area off with just a damp rag of water. You don't want to use any solvent or any materials like that because that can actually contaminate the urethane you're trying to bond to. All right, so once he's got everything ready to go, he's going to actually start prepping and actually start getting the windshield ready with the pinch weld primer. Now, one thing to note about pinch weld primer, this is good for very small scratches or any bare metal that is roughly 13 millimeters in square, so roughly 1 square inch. If you have more than 1 square inch of bare metal, car manufacturers request that you put epoxy primer on first, let that cure, then apply the pinch weld primer. This is not a bare metal primer. So if I had replaced the roof on the vehicle and I had bare metal all the way across the top, this product cannot go on there until an epoxy primer is put on the pinch weld first. Many times people forget that and they think this is a bare metal primer, and it's not. It's not meant to be used that way. It's meant to be very small spots and any scratches that happen. So we want to make sure we're using this correctly going through here. Very critical step in protecting the vehicle, make sure we get a proper adhesion with that. Now, as he's taking and cleaning anything up through here, we may make sure we take a look at areas, look for any scratches, any marks that may have happened from the tools, and make sure we get those areas with that. And as he's cleaning it up and getting the dirt, he's actually doing a process a lot of people forget about. He's getting the dirt off the back side. And the interesting thing is this pinch weld primer will protect against corrosion from any nicks, but if there's dirt in the way, the dirt will actually get in the way and won't allow the primer to get to where it needs to protect. So it actually blocks the primer from getting to the surfaces you're trying to actually protect with that. So with the process, he's actually cleaning it up, getting all the marks out of there and getting it very clean with that. Again, using a damp cloth. The water that he's using preferably is a distilled water, so it doesn't have fluoride or chlorine or anything from the tap in there, and that also keeps helps prevent contaminating the urethanes. Now, once he's got that whole procedure ready to go, he's got everything protected, then what he's going to do is come back with the pinch weld primer and use that for protecting any marks or any scratches on there. Now, in a windshield replacement mode, you want to prevent and try to keep any scratches or anything like that from happening, but In the process of removing a windshield, they do happen. So this is one of the necessary procedures to go through. Some cases and some technicians will actually take and protect the whole backside of the Pinchweld area. As long as it's not visible by the customer and the molding's covered up, there's not a problem with that. The more protection, actually, the better off you are with that. So there's not a problem with that. This particular product is actually designed to bond right to the painted surfaces right in there and actually block that off. So you can see where he's actually moving it through there. The nice thing about this product too, and when he's doing that by actually protect those top surfaces, is that in the days we're actually putting chemicals down on highways to actually make salt and winter areas stick better, it's better to have more primers protect where water can pool and actually can form corrosion spots on vehicles. So we want to make sure that we're protecting vehicles at all times from even, not from necessarily from us, but just even the elements that are out there too. So in this particular facet, what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve on the protection the car manufacturer puts in there. And as you can see, he's doing it on the bottom, he's doing it everywhere where he may have actually touched any tools or may have inadvertently come in contact with anything, so he's trying to protect it. Now, once he's actually doing this, you'll notice when he takes the dauber, he's putting it in there, putting the primer on there, he's actually kind of trying to push it into the areas where it needs to be. A lot of times technicians will fill this so up with primer and they'll just take and smurp right across. The problem is they get so much primer in there, it doesn't get into where it needs to go. It actually just kind of bridges across. And later on what will happen is they'll dry and a crack will occur and you'll actually see where the scratch is actually still in there. So what he's trying to do is make sure he gets it into that areas with that. Now the other thing is you'll notice that he's using another dauber. When he used the dauber over here, he dipped it into the product and he was actually protecting the vehicle. When he went to the other side of the vehicle, he grabbed a different dauber. He didn't take the dauber that he was using and reinsert it back in the primer. Any contamination he may have picked up and protect the vehicle would then be in the primer bottle for the next installation and cause problems. So what we're trying to do is make sure we don't contaminate the products as we use them either. So we don't do what we call double dipping. We want to make sure we're only using the daubers once, they only go in the bottle once through there. So you can see where he's getting a good even bead and everything's starting to come across. Now this particular primer also is a solvent-based primer. It is going to take a period of time for it to flash off. Roughly at about 75 degrees, it's going to take about 6 minutes to flash off. So once he gets the vehicle protected, we have this to flash off. And during that period, we'll actually be prepping, getting the urethane ready to apply to the Pinchweld of the vehicle. So this entire Pinchweld area has been all prepped and everything's ready for it. It's been protected against the elements, anything may happen, but also it's been make sure the primer's been put on for any areas where it may need help for the adhesion levels. So the primer does a lot of different things through there. So Buzz procedure, he's got the vehicle ready, we've got the glass ready. Now all we have to do is get the urethane ready to apply to the vehicle. And we're going to talk about making the tips and actually what the proper procedure for making tips to get the right amount of urethane to actually apply to the vehicle.